Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name Muhammad Irsyad Sodiq bin Yamin. Today I will present to you for my research project. The title for this study is Relationship, Eating Behavior and Mental Health of Sports Science Students UiTM Seremban 3. So this is the presentation outline. Background of study, statement of problem, research objective, literature review, methodology, results, discussion, and references. So we will go to the background of study. So as we can see here, the mental illness is the second rank of the heart problem after the heart disease in Malaysia. So from the previous study stated that Malaysian for the prevalence of depression was 8 to 12%. Okay, so as we can see, the depression is a serious mental illness that will cause the cognitive reactive negatively affect the human feel and the way how someone think and acts. Okay, next is disordered eating behavior could be the result of exaggerated preoccupation with healthy diet that is produced during the course of the study. This means the students that having the eating behavior, that's also when they used to the healthy diet but in larger portion. Okay, then the relationship between eating behavior and mental health also associate with depression, anxiety, impulsivity, symptom, and abdominal obesity. So we will go to the statement of the problem. As we can see here, the eating behavior or eating disorder will influence the student mental health because of the eating pattern and their dietary problem. So there is a finding from the Corinth. There is a suspicion and belief that a student of nutrition and dietetic start their studies with the motivation and with their own dietary problem. That means, as we can see, even the nutritionists and dietetic students also having the eating behavior problem. Okay, so the higher rates of the other forms of psychopathology, including the depression, anxiety disorder, as well lower self-esteem, and then it's also associate eating behavior that will affect the increasing body weight and BMI. So this is my research objective. First, to determine the eating behavior among sports science students. Second, to determine the level of mental health among sports science students. The third, to identify the relationship between mental health and eating behavior among sports science students. So this is the hypothesis for this study. So the null hypothesis is there is no significant relationship between eating behavior and mental health among sports science students. For the alternate hypothesis, there is a significant relationship between eating behavior and mental health among sports science. So from the literature review, we can see from the King that say due to the limited times and also the too much free time, that's as the barrier or the barrier for them eating the healthy behavior. And also for the Newmark state that student needs to sleep longer in the morning to take time for their prepare the breakfast. Okay, from the Lazarevich also state that unhealthy eating behavior will affect on the vanity and also the academic success. This means from the eating behavior itself can lead to the uh, academic success. Okay. Then from the Carey Smith, almost half of the arena populace alive in the country will hand this to psychiatrists. Okay, that means around the world that have many symptoms of the mental health, such as depression and anxiety. It also due to the disturbed ingesting behavior with the intellectual health symptom will affiliation with the obese and overweight population. Okay. So we will go to the methodology for this study. So for the research design for this study is descriptive, and it will use the correlation research design, and it use the correlational study to determine there is a relationship or not between the variable. So the sampling, the population that I choose is UiTM Sports Science student, and the total population that I choose is 338 students. That comes from SR113 and SR243, and the sample size is 181. Okay, so based on the Krigi and Morgan table here, 340 is the population number and the sample size is 181. But if we take a look on the Krigi and Morgan, it must add on 20% because to avoid unwritten and also drop out. Okay, so the total sample that I will collect data is 220 students. So the inclusion and exclusion for this study, the inclusion, all subjects willing to participate, and all subjects will use the same test and also measurement. Then for the exclusion, the one who have the chronic disease will exclude, and also the any subject who are not willing to cooperate will also exclude. So the instrumentation for this study, there is two. The first one is Dutch Eating Behavior Questionnaire, DEBQ, and also DSM. The first one, the DEBQ questionnaire, it consists 30 items, and for the 30 items is contain 3 domains, which is emotional eating, external eating, and restrained eating. For the crossbar alpha, for the 3 domain is acceptable for the internal consistency. Same goes to the DSM. The crossbar alpha is 0.75, so it's acceptable for the internal consistency. So this is the data collection procedure. Firstly, I will get the ethical approval by the Faculty of the Sports Science and Recreation, and then I will get the information, the total of the student, and then I will approach the student and explain the purpose of the study, and then I will give the questionnaire and also give the consent form to the subject, and also I will do the data collection. So the data analysis refer based on the RO, which is research objective, which is to determine the eating behavior. I will use the descriptive analysis, and for determine the level mental health, I will also use the descriptive analysis. To identify the relationship between eating behavior and mental health, I will use the correlation analysis. Okay, this is the results. Okay, for the eating behavior of the sports science students, as we can see here, for the emotional and restrained eating were high on the moderate level, which is mostly of the student are moderate emotional eating and also restrained eating. Okay, and while less on the external eating, on the low percentage among the students. Then this is the level of the mental health of the sports science. So the mostly students are tendency to moderate percentage, which is uh, the mental health will associate with the depression and anxiety, which is we can see here when the pandemic COVID-19, many students having the depression and also stress during the online classes and so on. And then this is the correlation eating behavior. So first one is we go to the emotional eating. So we can see here the p value is 0.00, which is less than 0.05. So it can conclude that there is a significant relationship between emotional eating and also mental health. And for the R value here is 0.34, which is it classified as the moderate strength of relationship. Okay, we go to the external eating and also restrained eating. So same goes to the emotional eating. The p value is 0.000, which is less than 0.05. It can conclude that there is a significant relationship between external eating and restrained eating between mental health among sports science. And the R value for the both variables are 0.41 for the restraint after the run off. Then we will get the 0.41, and it can classify as the moderate strong of the correlate relationship. So we will go to the discussion. For the eating behavior among the sports science student, so most student for this study more tendency to get the emotional eating behavior. Okay, so same goes to the previous study that state that emotional eating behavior can lead to increase the body weight, and also the reason because of lack of physical activities or exercise, and also high on consumption carbohydrates. Okay, and the same goes to the this study. It's can conclude that the female are more tendency on diet, or we can state that on the restrained eating, because they eat less than the normal. So because same goes to the previous study state that female are tendency to diet and take the less portion to maintain their femininity, compare while to the male they take a larger portion to maintain their masculinity. Okay, so based on the mental health among the student, there's a finding that say the increasing of level depression and anxiety are due to lack of physical activity. Okay, as we can see from the pandemic COVID-19, we can exercise more than normal. Okay, and they state for the previous study that primary context as a student stress has come from many various, which is one of them is one's on learning. They are learn something on their themselves, and also lack of the supervision and many of insecurity aspect. Okay. Okay, for the relationship eating behavior and mental health, as I say before, there is a significant difference. There is a significant relationship between eating behavior and mental health among sports science students, and it stated that eating behavior are highly associated with the depression, but for my study is the moderate for depression, mental health, because the problem of eating regularly. And so there is a finding that state the stress and depressed will lead to their eating pattern or behavior because of suppressed energy expenditure. So it will transmit to our brain uh, to take action to eat more than normal. Okay. So this is the reference that I use for this study. So I think that's all from me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.